I've worked at the cemetery for just about a year now, but before I took the job, my grandfather told me a story. He said it was passed down from his father, my great-grandfather, who worked here as a night watchman in the late 1800s. I've heard that story 100 times, but it always sends a shiver down my spine. It's about a black dog, not just any dog, but a ghostly protector, something that walked alongside our family for generations. Grandpa said it wasn't a tale for the faint-hearted, and after hearing it, I understand why. My great-grandfather worked these very grounds, walking the cemetery at night, lantern in hand. It was the dead of winter, cold, and the fog rolled in thick, almost like it had a mind of its own. It was a quiet night, but then he heard it, shovels scraping against stone. There were grave robbers on the property, digging up the dead for whatever valuables they could find. My great-grandfather knew his duty. He was to protect the cemetery, no matter the cost. So he crept closer, trying to be as quiet as possible. But before he could stop them, he saw something in the mist. From the fog came a shadow, huge and black as night. My great-grandfather froze. The shadow wasn't just a shadow. It was a dog, but not like any dog he had ever seen. Its eyes glowed red, and its fur seemed to shimmer, not with the light of lantern, but something darker, something otherworldly. The robbers didn't see it at first, but when the dog approached them, slow, silent, it made its presence known. The air grew still, colder, like death itself had come to visit. The first robber turned and the dog attacked. Its fangs sank into his arm, dragging him to the ground, and the second robber panicked, stumbling backward. But the dog didn't relent. It moved like a shadow, fast and terrifying. They screamed, but their voices were drowned out by the creature's growl. The dog chased them until they fled, running as fast as they could. They never returned. My great-grandfather said he stood frozen, watching the dog. It wasn't done. It turned to face him. The eyes locked onto his, and for a long moment it was like they were connected. Some unspoken bond between man and beast. Then, with one last growl, the dog vanished into the mist. My great-grandfather said the dog wasn't just protecting the cemetery. No, it was guarding something else. Something connected to our family. The dog was a protector. A spirit bound to the watchmen of the cemetery. It had been his ancestor's dog, a loyal companion, even in death. From that day on, my great-grandfather said the dog stayed with him, watching over him every night as he walked the grounds. And as the years passed, the dog became a part of our family's legacy. It wasn't just a tale, it was the truth. One that my grandfather passed down to me. He said the dog still roams the cemetery at night, guarding the graves, keeping the restless spirits at bay. And when the fog rolls in thick, it's not just the mist you should fear. It's the eyes of the dog, watching from the shadows. I didn't believe the story at first. Not really. I thought it was just a tale, something to pass the time. But one night as I walked these same grounds, something changed. The fog rolled in, thick as ever. I stood near the old mausoleum, the lantern's light flickering in the distance. And that's when I saw it, the glowing red eyes peering out from the shadows. The black dog. It stood there watching me, just as my grandfather had said it would. My heart froze. It didn't move. It just stared at me, its eyes filled with something ancient, something protective. I didn't dare move. I couldn't. I wasn't alone out here. The dog was watching over me, just like it had done for generations before me. And just like that, the fog swallowed the creature whole, leaving only the cold night air and the echo of its growl. I was 19 years old, working the night shift at a seaside hotel on the south coast of England. Quiet building, old bones, big shadows. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid. On my 7th shift, the day guard passed me the clipboard and laughed nervously. "You met the ghost in the toilets yet?" I snorted. "What ghost?" He stopped smiling. His voice dropped. "Don't go in the basement toilets after midnight. 3rd cubicle. A lad died in there. Knocked 3 times and, well, they say it pulls you in." I laughed again. That was mistake number 1. That night, after midnight, the hotel dropped into the kind of silence that gets under your skin. Then I heard it. A metallic clang, sharp, deliberate, from deep in the basement. I should have radioed it in, should have waited till morning. But I was young. I had my flashlight. I thought the dark had rules. The toilets were straight from a nightmare. Water stains on tile, cracked mirrors, that sour mildew scent in your nose. 3 cubicles. 1st was open, empty. 2nd, I knocked. Once, twice. No answer. I peeked in. Nothing. I turned to go, but that 3rd cubicle door, it seemed to breathe. I swear it flexed, like it was holding something in. My hand hovered at the door. I heard my co-worker's warning again. Don't knock 3 times. I don't know what made me do it. Once. Twice. And then the 3rd time. The knock echoed through the room like thunder. The light above flickered. The door creaked open. It was standing there, a man maybe my age, soaked in blood, his head down, shoulders trembling. Then his head jerked up. His face was pale, lips black, and those eyes, empty sockets full of hunger. Then his mouth opened, wider than a mouth should go, and from it came a scream. No, not a scream, a guttural sound. My flashlight flickered and died. I ran like hell. I don't remember the stairs, just the pounding in my head and the feeling of something right behind me. I threw open the basement door, ran out into the lobby, and didn't stop until I saw daylight. They sealed the toilets, but people still whisper about it, about the 3rd cubicle. So if you're ever in that hotel and you get curious, just don't knock 3 times. My grandmother told me a story once. I was just a boy back in the war years, 1942 or thereabouts. The bombs were falling nightly, and yet the story she told me chilled me more than anything I'd ever heard. She said when she was a young woman, she worked as a barmaid in an old pub in Whitechapel, the East End of London. The pub had soot on its walls and the basement full of damp, but it paid enough to afford a small lodging room upstairs, just under the eaves. One foggy night, long after regulars had stumbled home, she was making her way up the crooked staircase, candle in hand, when she saw him. A man, standing at the end of the corridor, dressed in dark Victorian garb, long coat, high collar, top hat, and then gone, like steam fading off the river. She told herself it was just the light. She climbed the last steps and shut the door behind her. She undressed in silence, and in that deep, heavy silence she drifted into sleep. But sometime in the early hours, she awoke. Something felt wrong. Cold, heavy. She turned and screamed. There, lying beside her in bed, was the man from the hallway, pale, drenched in shadow, and his eyes didn't blink. She leapt from the bed and rushed to the window, but down below, in the gaslight fog, stood the same man, black cape, top hat, and a small surgeon's bag in his hand. She looked to the bed, which was now empty, then back down onto the street. He looked up, straight into her eyes. She shut the curtains, locked the door, and curled up on the floor. Minutes passed, then a scream from the alley below, a scream so raw and shrill it didn't sound human. Then police whistles, shouts, boots on cobblestone. My grandmother never worked another night in that pub. She believed she saw Jack the Ripper.